I've decided perhaps to go with the most ridiculous story over the break, which is a viral conversation between Michael Knowles and a guy named Clavvicular. Now, you may not know who this guy is because I didn't either until he appeared on Michael's show.
Do you punch yourself in the face?
Yes. I used to use a hammer, but
Who is this guy?
Are there any downsides to hitting yourself in the head with a hammer?
no.
So make no mistake about it, this guy actually is serious about looksmaxing, and he is practicing what he preaches. And again, I think this is emblematic of something that is going on with Gen Z. In fact, perhaps the most untalked about drug and most commonly abused drug in the present is the drug of attention. Welcome to the show. My name is Reed Huberman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I hope each and every one of you had an amazing Christmas. I know me and my family did. We brought a new puppy into our home because we wanted to give our kids a job for Christmas, and they've been doing a great job at that. And so there's a new addition to the family down on our end, and I hope you're planning a great new year. Now, I guess not too controversial. I'll give my take on kind of like the new year. I think New Year's resolutions and even the hard reset of a new year is good. Even though God doesn't abide by our calendar and he's outside of time, I still think for us as human beings, it's good for us to kind of look forward to things and to try to envision and plan and to try to improve upon the year that has just gone by and look forward to new things in the new year. So I hope you're doing that. I hope you're praying toward that end. And as I started to do that, I wanted to figure out an explosive way to start the new year. We've been on 2 weeks break, and now it's time to jump into some of the stories that have been taking place since that break. And a lot has taken place. So maybe you'll remember that Trump bombed northern ISIS-occupied territory in Nigeria. All that's broken out online. For my part, I'll just make it real quick and say I'm absolutely in favor of it. Whenever we can use whatever power we have to protect our brothers and sisters in Christ, then I'm all for it. And that's what has been going on in Nigeria with some of these ISIS-occupied territories. They've been attacking innocent civilians and targeting Christians. So I'm for it. And even just recently, Trump has pursued regime change in Venezuela, and a lot of different views on that are taking place right now. And again, I'll just say that I believe that as a Christian nation, we have an obligation to use our power for good. And again, there's a lot that could be said about that, but I'm all for it. And then also, one of the big explosive stories over the break has been Nick Shirley and his reporting about Somali fraud in Minneapolis. And that's huge. And that's continuing to unfold more and more things as now he's investigating home health care services that apparently do absolutely nothing. So hopefully more will come out about that. HSI is on the ground investigating now. So I could have talked about that. And I could have even talked about the explosive reveal that no one saw coming in Stranger Things, that Will is, yes, gay.
I don't like girls. I mean, I do, just not like you guys do.
Why are you gay?
Again, nobody expected that. Hollywood is full of talented writers, so of course, they all got together in a writer's room and said to themselves, if we're really going to make this series amazing, what we have to do is make one of the characters gay.
Put a chick in it and make her name it gay!
Sure, yeah. Well, let's try that.
And that is what took place. There's a lot of people defending that online. However, I think we all know this is ridiculous, especially when you look at this in light of the fact that though Stranger Things has always been a throwback, modern audiences are watching this right now. And it seems ridiculous to us in the present because of the way the LGBTQ agenda has unfolded in the present. So if somebody were to come out now as gay, of course, all the LGBTQs out there, LMNOPs, would say to that individual, dude, so what? The virtual Olympics would begin, and then they would start saying, well, I'm a they, them, mermaid, demisexual, trans, furry-loving, whatever. So nice try. It doesn't get anybody's attention because obviously the slippery slope of the gay agenda from the late 80s into the present has brought us into the insane time that we're presently in. So maybe less insane and more sanity is good for all of us, which is why this has become a punchline online. So we could have talked about that, but instead I've decided perhaps to go with the most ridiculous story over the break, which is a viral conversation between Michael Knowles and a guy named Clavvicular. Now, you may not know who this guy is because I didn't either until he appeared on Michael's show. So that forced me to then go use ChatGPT to figure out who is this guy. And this is what it told me that his real name is Braden Peters. Of course, his name is Braden. I'm sure he played soccer as a young man. And he said, it said that he's a controversial American internet personality and streamer best known for his looksmaxing focused content. Now, looksmaxing essentially is to try to help you become the most physically appealing person that you can possibly be. That's kind of the idea. So where he promotes extreme self-improvement strategies aimed at enhancing physical appearance, often using pseudoscientific language to rate attractiveness and discuss aesthetic optimization. I would say that that's probably a fair assessment of who he actually is, and avoids some of the more ridiculousness of this young man, because he's also somebody who has gotten attention online by doing things like claiming that Charlie Kirk never would have been killed if he was attractive.
Would Charlie Kirk have gotten assassinated if he were Chad? Well, probably not, and here's why.
So yeah, that's who Clavvicular is. And now you're probably asking why I chose to speak about this guy. Well, in a very kind of limited way, there's a lot of conversation right now happening among millennials, Gen X, about the future of Gen Z, especially as it pertains to Zionism in the conservative movement. And to a limited degree, I wanted to talk about this for that reason, just simply because I think that that's totally overblown. I don't believe that Zionism is the real problem with Gen Z conservatives and whether or not we're going to support Israel. Forgive me, but I think perhaps that what's going on with the kind of anti-Zionist conservative right now among especially Gen Z is very similar to what's taking place on the left in Gen Z when it comes to the kind of Free Palestine movement. So those people cannot tell you where Palestine is on a map. They can't tell you where the river and the sea is. And in the same fashion, the anti-Zionist right cannot tell you where Israel is, and they cannot tell you how much foreign aid we give to Israel on a regular basis. They don't know any of that stuff. So I don't largely think that's really the issue facing Gen Z. So I wanted to talk about Gen Z because they are the future. And as we look forward to a fruitful 2026, I want to talk about the future. And I think it's really rare to find somebody who embodies what the future will look like because they take their ideas to their logical conclusion. Most people aren't honest enough for that, but this young man is truly honest. Now, you may think he's so honest that it's a little peculiar and he's nothing more than an online troll and a grifter, and I assure you he is both of those things. But he's also a true believer in this whole looksmaxing idea and the philosophy of aesthetics, because this is one of the viral moments from the Michael Knowles interview that has gone all over the internet, where this young man talks about actually smacking himself in the head with his fist and with a hammer.
Smash, like you punch yourself in the face?
Yeah.
If I punch myself in the face, I'm going to get like a nice mewed up jaw?
Yeah, according to Wolf's Law, right?
Do you punch yourself in the face?
Yes.
How hard?
Like reasonably. Like
Just your fist?
Yeah. I used to use a hammer, but my parents would go into my bathroom and take it away. So that was
You would hit yourself in the head with a hammer?
yeah, I know. It sounds a little silly. Like people are gonna think I'm trolling, but this is all like on YouTube. Like you can find this stuff.
I almost don't want to ask, did it work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, bone smashing's legit. I mean, you even take a look at like UFC fighters, like their brow ridge over their career, or x-rays of their shin, and like there's massive amounts of hypertrophy in their bones.
Are there any downsides to hitting yourself in the head with a hammer?
No.
So make no mistake about it, this guy actually is serious about looksmaxing, and he is practicing what he preaches. And again, I think this is emblematic of something that is going on with Gen Z. In fact, I think what you just saw is the right-wing equivalent, because this young man is, for all intents and purposes, more on the conservative side and on the right-wing side. He said he voted for Donald Trump. What you just saw is the right-wing equivalent of left-wing transgenderism. So this self-harm, this plea for attention that happens in the transgender movement, this is what is going on with this young man on the right. And I think that this is much more common than we think. And ultimately, it comes back to something simple that I want to talk more about in 2026, which is that perhaps the most untalked about drug and most commonly abused drug in the present is the drug of attention. And everybody is craving it. And social media is the place where people people do it the most. But what is causing this deficit of attention? Why are people craving it so deeply online now, seemingly more so than they did in the past? And I think that the conversation between Michael Knowles and Clavvicular is really telling. Now, Clavvicular is not going to come out and tell you what I'm about to say when I give my assessment, but essentially I think that this is a faithful assessment of what he's actually saying and actually doing, because underneath everything that he believes and says is a philosophy, a worldview that is logically consistent and that we can expect more of if we don't come to a conclusion that will really solve it. We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but before we do that, I gotta make sure to recognize our amazing sponsor, Sweet and Savory. If you're looking for an online or in-person cooking class experience, Sweet and Savory is your one-stop shop for not only an amazing experience, but also some great food. They'll teach you how to make some of the best. Now, if maybe, just maybe, you failed your spouse or your date on Christmas and you didn't get that dream gift, you can totally redeem yourself this Valentine's Day by making sure you book a class at Sweet and Savory. Now, you can do that in person or you can do it online. And when you do that, you'll have amazing food, you'll have an amazing experience, and you'll have a memory that will never waste away. It's a really unique date night experience, and Valentine's Day is where you can find some of the most amazing classes. So go to sweetandsavoryclassroom.com, scroll through a list of their online classes and upcoming in-person classes. Make sure to book a date, but before you check out, use the promo code IndieThinker for a discount on your order. First and foremost, here is a clip that will highlight his philosophy as he talks about his feelings about Sydney Sweeney and beauty.
Well, what are we talking about by hot? Like good looking? Like some people think that like Sydney Sweeney is extremely attractive.
I would say, I don't want to scandalize anybody, a married man. I would say Sydney Sweeney is very attractive.
I would say that she's pretty malformed. Her upper maxilla is extremely recessed, right? She's got the eyes of doom with no infraorbital support. She's really not that much of a looker in her face. I think that a lot of people with brains find her attractive because of her body.
I don't have porn brain. I don't know. Well, you're telling me that that if a guy finds Sydney Sweeney attractive, he's got to have porn brain?
I think that she's above average in looks, but certainly not that like, you know.
No, you said she's got a sunken suborbital, I forget the words that you said.
Yeah, she's got a recessed infraorbitals and a recessed upper maxilla.
You're telling me you go to a bar.
I'm just saying she's not the pinnacle of looks that I'm talking about to actually succeed on social media. She's average to above average.
So Sydney Sweeney is not beautiful. Now, in fairness, I'll go ahead and just suggest something that the vast majority of men, and maybe Clavvicular falls into this category, have not taken the time to really appreciate the facial beauty of Sydney Sweeney, and they're looking at certain other attributes that she has no problem showing off.
Hey, buddy, eyes up here.
So they really don't know that she's a beautiful woman, but anybody that has taken the time to look at her with just a fleeting glance, as I have, I'm a married man, not interested in any other woman other than my wife, but I can still be honest enough to say that she's a beautiful woman. So I think that this ultimately could be considered a plea for attention, just trying to say something ridiculous online and get people to comment, just click farming, all that kind of thing. But I think ultimately this is more than that. I think what this is, too, is a rejection of authority, a rejection of objective truth, because Sydney Sweeney is clearly objectively beautiful. So when you object to objective truth, or you reject objective truth, you must replace it with something. And this next clip kind of shows us exactly what Clavvicular is going to replace it with.
Who's going to win? It's going to be Gavin Newsom against J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is subhuman and Gavin Newsom mugs.
J.D. Vance is subhuman?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
He's got a very short total facial width to height ratio. He's obese, very recessed side profile, whereas Newsom is like 6'3" Chad.
So JD's very tall. JD's got to be
well, still,
6'2",
I mean,
6'3".
Gavin Newsom obviously mogs him to death.
So you're a Newsom head. You prefer Newsom to the vice president.
I'm just telling you who's going to win.
It's 2028.
I'm voting for Gavin Newsom.
You're voting for Gavin Newsom.
You can't be that subhuman.
So hold on. You got all right. Well, this actually is up a thread with the whole conversation, because you look at these two candidates. You have Gavin Newsom, worst governor in the country. I think we would all agree, destroyed his state, let its main city burn to the ground because of his incompetence, is a personal, complete derelict, liar, degenerate. But he is good looking. I'll grant you that he's good looking.
Yep.
And kind of looks like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho.
Hey.
And then you have this vice president to President Trump, the transformative right-wing president in our lifetimes, who, do you support Trump or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got this vice president handpicked by Trump, who is extremely intelligent, very right wing. I think he's a pretty good looking guy. I don't know, I guess you disagree, but he's all these things, checks all these boxes, would have all these great policies, and regardless, you're going to pick the mass migrant, pro-trans, pro-murder the babies, pro-burn the cities to the ground, pro-BLM Democrat because he's skinnier than the conservative vice president.
100 times over. J.D. Vance, would he be a better candidate and probably closer to me in terms of policy than Gavin Newsom? Yes, but he's just not going to be good enough to be deserving. I think the right has kind of let down the voters for the longest time. So I think I don't really think that right-wingers should just give support to these jesters who continue to underdeliver on their promises. Just let the Democrats win. That's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of just like why I don't support Vance as a voter. But
so you're saying no, they shouldn't vote for any Republican. It's kind of doomer, isn't it? By saying, look, not only am I apathetic, I want the Democrats to win because they're going to be bad, because they're going to screw up the country, and then we'll have a revolution. It'll be good again.
Okay, you heard it right, folks. He's willing to vote for Gavin Newsom, the guy literally letting his state burn down to the ground, the worst governor in America. He's willing to vote for that guy because he believes that he's better looking than J.D. Vance, who is, by the way, a Marine and way more of a man than Gavin Newsom will ever dream about being. So yeah, that's his brilliant take. Simply an aesthetic, superficial take. And ultimately, I think once you reject objective beauty or reject objective standards, you're ultimately only left with your subjective standards. Now, push aside the fact that Michael Knowles asks him a brilliant question, which is, what are you doing? How are you helping things if you're going to critique the Republican movement for not actually doing enough? And then he says that I'm just bettering my life and upping my status and increasing my wealth. So it sure seems that Republicans are doing a good enough job for you to do that. So certainly the take of a grifter to complain about all the bad that's going on in the world while he's doing just fine. However, I think more importantly, this clearly represents what is happening in Gen Z a lot, which is that they reject authority and objective facts for the sake of a feeling, for the sake of an emotion. This is emotivism on steroids. So this is what you must replace objective authority with once you've gotten rid of it. You've got to replace it with something. So ultimately, people just replace it with their own self-referencing feelings and emotions about certain things. And that's what Clavvicular has done. Now, the ultimate conclusion for a person who rejects authority and replaces it with their emotions and their feelings, the ultimate conclusion for that person is to try to find some kind of palliative, because ultimately it doesn't truly work and it doesn't provide meaning, which is what we'll see in this next clip.
You do meth.
Yeah, I haven't done meth in 2 weeks, but I do meth, yeah.
I sometimes do a little nicotine pouch, and I think I'm being like real bad. I'm like, oh, I should I? But I would say
for a good one here.
the maxed version of the pouch is meth. Why do you do meth?
Well, because meth is very similar in terms of its makeup to something like Adderall, but it's got a little bit better psychoactive benefits, meaning the Adderall has levoamphetamine in it, which is a physical stimulant. And that's not necessarily ideal for a lot of the things that I'm doing, maybe task-oriented stuff, sitting on a computer. So why do I need a physical stimulant? And meth also has a longer half-life. And what meth actually is dextromethamphetamine. What Adderall is, 75% of it at least, is dexamphetamine. These are very similar, just the addition of the methyl group, making it longer acting. And the reason I also like it to be longer acting for a looksmaxing context is stimulants cause appetite suppressants.
But you're a big guy. In other words, don't you need a lot of calories to?
Well, no, I'm trying to maintain my leanness, because the leaner you are, the more angular your face. And while I do use GLP-1s, sometimes that's not enough to suppress my appetite. So I need to, rely on stimulants.
Now pray for this dude 100%, because you would be hard pressed to ever convince me that he is taking a psychotropic, mood-altering drug just merely to suppress his appetite. We don't think this has anything to do with the fact that there are demons in this young man's life that he is trying to excise, or at least to try to suppress by using meth on a regular basis. I think that's exactly what's going on, because once you've rejected authority and you've replaced it with your own subjective emotions and feelings, it's ultimately going to leave you totally unfulfilled, and you're going to have to find something to retreat to ease the pain of your conscience. And ultimately, this is, I think, what's going on with Gen Z. The rampant disease of secularism has set in among this group of people, and now we are seeing the repercussions of all of this. And why do I say that? Simply because Gen Z, on average, based upon statistics, is the most irreligious group of people in the history of America. So ultimately, once you've rejected the ultimate objective transcendent authority of God, you've got to retreat to some other standard, and ultimately Clavvicular and many in Gen Z have merely retreated to themselves. When God is not on the throne, something must take his place. And for many people, that simply becomes the man in the mirror. And then once you've done that, and you've recognized that it does not work at all, you must find some kind of palliative to deal with this world, since your worldview does not give you the telos and the meaning that you actually need in this life to truly make sense of the world. But I don't blame Clavvicular. In fact, I truly believe he's the logical repercussion of telling a generation over and over and over again that there is no God, you're a random accident, you're nothing but primordial ooze, you're a meatball in space, there is no meaning or purpose to your life. We've told this generation, like Richard Dawkins has said, that the universe is just as you would expect it to be if there is no creator, no designer, and at bottom, no meaning, no purpose, no right, no wrong, just pitiless indifference. So ultimately, what else would you do except retreat to self-harm, depression, or maybe even substance to try to make it through this world when you have nothing else to look to? There is no higher authority in your life than yourself. Of course, you're going to retreat to narcissism, and because narcissism ultimately can't fill the human soul, it will lead you to nihilism. And that's what we're dealing with in Clavvicular here. The logical conclusion that Gen Z has drawn is that without a Christian base and without a God in the universe to truly provide us ultimate transcendent meaning, we're only left to focus on the superficial. And the superficial ultimately leaves us empty and dry, as it is this young man. So the only cure for this black pill of Christless conservatism, of Christless existence, is the white pill of Christianity. If our culture doesn't take it, we can expect more of Gen Z and even worse. But I'm believing for greater than that. I'm believing for revival in 2026. And a Christian revival is the only hope for America. Because at this point, it's revival or bust. And apparently, bust yourself in the face with a hammer until you realize all of it is empty without God. All right, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if the show was beneficial to you, if you got something out of it or learned something, trust me, you will love becoming a member over at indiethinker.org/support, where you can gain access to ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and documentaries who have been carefully selected to try to help deepen your Christian faith. So go to indiethinker.org/support. Don't forget to check out the sponsors down below in the description of this podcast. But most importantly, please, for the love of God, in 2026, go with God.